Hi guys, this is Dr. Daulton from Chiropractic, and today I'm at Fuel CrossFit in Crown Point, Indiana, where my good friends, coaches Dustin and Daniela Sherlow, who are the owners of this CrossFit box, they are working with me to help make you a series of videos about proper exercise form. And in today's video, we're going to start with just a simple air squat. Now, our friend Coach Dustin, he's going to be actually explaining to you and walking you through how to do this squat. And we have a model for you today. Her name is Carly. She's absolutely amazing. I'm very excited about this. And after he goes through the proper steps for doing this squat the way that you're supposed to so that you don't hurt yourself, I'm going to go ahead and go into a few more things as far as what muscles we're strengthening and what the full benefits are of doing this exercise for you, okay? Now, why are we even talking about this? Well, here's the thing. With the squat, you got to be careful because there's two areas that you can injure yourself with if you don't do this properly. The first one is the knees, and we're going to explain how to make sure that you do this right so that you don't hurt your knees. The other thing where you can be affected is in your lower back, all right? So we're going to walk you through this, and then I'll be talking to you in a little bit, and we'll go into more detail for you.
So when I first work with somebody on a basic air squat, I run them through a few different things that I want them to hit. First thing is that their feet are about hip width apart. 2, that they have a nice tall chest when they're getting ready to go down into that squat. 3, that we get their hips moving back at the start of that squat. 4, I want their knees pushing out over the sides of their toes and not coming forward. 5, I want them to have a nice flat back with no rounding. And then 6, I want their heels to stay flat on the ground throughout the entire movement.
All right, guys, there's just a few more things that I want to cover here before we finish up this video today. The very first thing that I want to talk to you about here is notice how when our model Carly, when she goes down into her squat, if you were to draw a line from the tip of her toes up to her knee and then from her knee to her hip, that creates a 90-degree angle. And I want you to notice that she's actually squatting below that 90-degree angle. The reason that she's able to do that is because she has really good flexibility in her hips and also in her knees. Now, you may not have that, and that's okay. I just want you to be aware that you don't have to squat that low if you can't do that at this point in time. If you can get to 90 degrees, that's great. If you can't, stay above 90 degrees. But the key is, if you can't get to 90 degrees or lower, you just want to make sure that your knees never go forward in front of your toes. Because if the knees extend in front of the toes, what's going to happen is that you're going to cause damage to your knees, and that's where knee problems develop as the end result of people squatting incorrectly. And that's why we're covering this video for you to begin with. So that's the first thing that I want to talk to you about there. The next thing that I want to talk about is what if you can't do this air squat? Now, there are many people, I of course deal with patients who have back problems and whatnot. There are many people who would not be capable of doing an air squat, and that's okay. If you aren't able to do this, let's just look at what this movement actually is. An air squat is really just sitting and standing in the air. That's all you're actually doing with this movement. So if you can't do this in the air, start with your bed. All you want to do is sit down on the bed and stand up from the bed. I have a lot of patients start that way because they don't have the strength in the legs in order to actually do this in the air like we just demonstrated for you. And that's okay. If you have to use your hands to get down and back up again, that's all right also. However, the goal should be that you want to be able to sit on the bed and stand up from the bed without using your hands. When you get to the point where you can do that 15 to 20 times without any help, then what I want you to do is move to a chair, because a chair is a little bit lower than the bed is. Build yourself up to where you can do 15 or 20 of those in the chair without using your hands. And then once you get to that point, now you can go ahead and try the air squat, all right? So you want to gradually build your body up if you aren't capable of doing this at this point in time. And that's how you want to actually make that happen. Now let's talk next about what muscles we're strengthening when we do this exercise. Now a squat is actually a really incredible exercise. You get a lot of bang for your buck with this one. So I want you to look at our model Carly again and notice with me how her neck is nice and strong, keeping her head looking forward. Her middle back is nice and strong because in order for her to keep her chest up, she has to contract the muscles between her shoulder blades to make that happen. The low back is nice and contracted. Her core is nice and strong. The butt muscles are engaged and tightened. And then in the thigh, we have 4 different quadrants that we separate these muscles into. On the front of the thigh, we call that the quadriceps muscles. On the outer thigh, we call those the abductors. The inner thigh, we call it the adductors. And on the back of the thigh, you have the hamstrings. All 4 of those muscle groups are contracting right now in order to keep her upright. And at the same time, the muscles of the front of the shin and also the calf are contracting, because if you do this exercise properly, the weight should actually be on the heel and you're gonna feel like you're falling backwards. And if you do, that's okay. It's happened to me before, it's happened to many people. You just have to build yourself up. So if you should feel like you're off balance if you're doing this exercise correctly, and because of that, all of these muscles have to contract equally to keep you standing upright, okay? Now, I want to go ahead and just make a little side note here. Y'all know I like to make a little joke occasionally. Let's have some real talk for a second here. Now, I understand that most people do not exercise for the right reasons. Most people exercise because they want to look good, right? And I'm no different than you. If that's your motivation, it doesn't matter to me. All I care about is that you do something and that you start exercising on a regular basis. So if that's what you need to get yourself motivated to do it, that's okay with me. But let's talk about what happens with the squat here. If you want an amazing, famous backside like Jennifer Lopez has, you're going to want to get comfortable doing your squats, because let me tell you something. Her love may not cost a thing, but that incredible body of hers costs a whole lot of time working out and a whole lot of healthy eating. So you better get comfortable with that, all right? That's how she makes that happen. Now, at the same time, when you guys have heard me talk before about exercise, I always say one thing, and this is kind of my famous comment that I've learned. All physical training is mental training, and that's why I love exercise, because when I usually talk about that, what I'm really referring to is the fact that when you put yourself in a situation where you're working hard physically, your brain will actually give up long before the body does. So as you work out harder, you're actually building mental strength. All right, and you're becoming a stronger person mentally. But what's amazing about the squat is that this is actually a real life example of how doing a physical exercise actually strengthens your brain and your nervous system. And let me explain that to you. Your nervous system is what's controlling all of this movement. So when she goes down into her squat, that doesn't just happen, all right? It doesn't happen by chance. The reason that's happening is because she's made the conscious decision to go into a squat, and now there's a series of things that happen in order to make that work. It all starts in the brain. So the brain, I like to call it the source of electricity of your body, because really if you look at your nervous system, it really is what provides power for everything to work. Now there's a communication that's happening there as well that we'll talk about in a second, but the first thing I want to talk about is just this is the power source. So it starts in the brain. That power is sent down the spinal cord, which is what lives inside of your spine, and then out through the nerves in the lower back that control all of these muscles in the legs. And so what's happening there is that those nerves are sending energy for these muscles to contract in a certain way in order for her to stay upright in her squat and not fall over. But at the same time that that's happening, the muscles are also sending messages back through the same path up to the brain, because the brain is controlling balance. So the brain doesn't really know what's going on out here in the real world. The only way that it knows what's happening and how it needs to adapt and work better in a certain situation is by the body talking to it back again, okay? So the brain is taking messages from these muscles and it's saying, what do I have to do in order to make her still stay upright so that she doesn't fall over in this squat? So by continuing that communication, the brain is actually building your balance skills and your ability to stay balanced and upright and not fall over. Now, what you'll notice is that when you first start squatting, you're gonna fall probably pretty often. But after you continue doing it over and over and over again, the brain is going to build this memory of that exercise, and it's going to get easier for you to do. Once you get comfortable doing the air squat, that's when we're going to add weight, which we're going to talk about in the next video for you, okay? But I just wanted to share that with you because it's absolutely incredible how even though you're doing a physical exercise, you're literally building the brain and you're improving your balance because of the squat that you're doing at that point in time. Now, one thing though you got to keep in mind that in order for that to happen, you have to make sure that there's nothing interrupting that communication between the brain, the spinal cord, the nervous system, and the muscles that we're using for this exercise. And there's one thing that can happen to people, and this is what chiropractors look for. It's called subluxation, and I want to show you what this is. Let me show you my full spine first here, okay? So we've got the spine here. If this were inside of me, it would be like this, okay? And then of course here is the side view of the spine. But you'll notice here, if I take this little model, this would be as if I was in the lower back here. I'm just going to pull this out and we're going to take a closer look at these two vertebrae right here. Now, notice what we have here. You've got the bones stacked on top of each other, and then there's a disc between the two bones. That's like a cushion, okay? And notice here at the back, you've got this opening that's created between the two bones, and that's where the nerve is coming out, and that's what's going out to your body and telling the body what to do. Now, what can happen sometimes is that if this bone misaligns, do you see how it's going to put pressure on that nerve? Well, essentially, when you put pressure on that nerve, what you're doing is you're stopping that communication or that power flow from the brain out to the body and from the body back to the brain. If this happens to you, your body isn't going to be getting the full benefit of the exercise. And actually, this is the reason that you'll see that they say that 90% of professional athletes actually see a chiropractor on a regular basis. And when I say a regular basis, what I'm referring to is at least once a week. The reason they do that isn't because they're constantly in pain or they're constantly hurting themselves, although chiropractic can help when that happens to these athletes, but the reason that they utilize chiropractic so regularly is because they're looking for an edge. If you can keep your nervous system functioning at its best, what happens is you're going to be a little faster. You're going to get a little stronger. You're going to have a little better endurance. And to a professional athlete, seconds count, do they not? In fact, for some athletes, seconds could mean the difference between millions of dollars for them. So of course this matters to them. But that's the reason that they utilize chiropractic, is because they know that if they get a subluxation, it's going to cut off that flow of electricity from the brain out to the body, and their body isn't going to function at its best. So it's important that if you are athletic and if you're exercising on a regular basis and if you want to get the most out of it, you need to be seeing your chiropractor regularly, because that's how your body's going to stay functioning and you're going to get the full effect and the full benefit of these exercises that we talk about with you, okay? All right, that's pretty much all I want to say on this video. I hope you found this interesting. Go ahead and try those air squats, and then we will see you on the next video where we're going to be talking about adding weight to the squat, so that way you get even more from it and you build strength better with it, okay? Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.